DmaxStore service department. Today we're talking about LB7 fuel injectors, what brings customers in with their concerns, our diagnosis, repair procedures, and options we have. Come on back and take a look. So we have two LB7s here. We have an LB7 here, 2003, that came in for an excessive smoking concern at idle that gets worse when accelerating. We also have another truck next to it that came in with the check engine light for a low rail pressure code, a P1093, when he's under hard acceleration or pulling loads. The first one we're going to start with is this one here. Nick is starting our inspection, and we always start with a visual inspection first under the hood. As you can see, he's looking at our charge air system and the intake system, making sure we don't have any leaks. Excessive air getting introduced into the system can cause excessive smoking, so we want to make sure that we don't have a hole in the boost tube, we don't have an intake that's coming off, we don't have any issues with that before we move forward on it. So as you can see here, this is a boost tube on the driver's side that's a common failure on these LB7s where it'll actually rub on a power steering line and create a hole. This hole can create air coming into the system, which then creates excessive smoke on it. As our inspection shows on this truck, it does not have this, so we'll go ahead and take a look at some injector balance rates and the on times. Injector balance rates can sometimes be challenging because what it's ultimately looking at is not only just the state of the health of an injector, but it's also trying to balance out the motor. As it balances out the motor, you could see a really high balance rate, which could also be an issue with the compression or a valve train issue. So we want to make sure that we're looking at this and looking at the on times. If the truck's running rough, we sometimes have to go a little bit further. This truck here, we're going to show you here some balance rates and on times. A spec on a balance rate is going to be a negative 4.0 to a positive 4.0. Typically anything in that number shows that it should be good, but we do often see a balance rate could be within spec, but we have an on time of the injector of how the system is being commanded to be low where it's actually pulling fuel back from that injector. As you'll see here, we're using our GM Tech 2 scan tool for our diagnostic aid. We're going to go through, we're going to look at our balance rates here. You can see 1 through 8 on the injector balance rates. You got a couple here that are a little bit high, a negative 3.2 and a 3.5 on numbers 4 and 5. So most people are going to look at that and say your injectors are good, but you still have this smoking concern. So what we're going to do is we're going to go a little bit further, and we're going to go back up here and we're going to look at our injector command. This injector command time, we typically want to see this millisecond up over 0.35 or so. And as it gets lower, it shows that the engine control module and the fuel injection control module are actually trying to slow down that injector of the fuel that's going out of there. You'll see number 2 right here fluctuating down almost to the point at times where it's turning that injector off. You're going to see some other numbers here on number 4, also very low, and then some other ones down here, 0.27, 0.31. This shows us that this is definitely having failing fuel injectors, as the computer system can't control that injector amount of fuel that's going through there. I'm going to do a quick throttle snap test. You'll see what kind of smoke's coming out of this thing, out of that tailpipe, not only just at idle, but when a customer goes and accelerates. So you'll see by looking at the back of the exhaust and the tailpipe what that looks like. So as you can see, that's pretty excessive. We don't want to have that on our highways. Smog failure is very common for that. So we know we have injectors that are failing. We're going to go ahead and move forward with our next step of replacement of the fuel injectors. All right, we're going to take a walk over to this next truck. Dan's got some test equipment on it. This truck here came in, as I mentioned earlier, as a low rail pressure code, P1093. We've already gone through and ramped the rail pressure. Maximum rail pressure on these trucks should be 160 MPAs, which is a megapascal. This truck would only achieve about 94 MPAs. When there's a 20 MPa difference between desired and actual, it's going to go ahead and set that low rail pressure code. So what we're looking at right now is the return rates. So what Dan's already done is he has disabled the fuel injector electronics by removing the ignition 1 relay. We have gone ahead and pinched off a return line here, and we have both banks set up into the beakers. So we have our passenger side bank here, we have our driver side bank here going to these beakers. What we're looking for as we're cranking is we want to make sure that we have under 16 milliliters per bank. Each injector should have no more than 4 milliliters per injector on the return side. If we have over that, then we can deem the injector failing on the return side of it. So Dan's going to go ahead and crank it over for 15 seconds, and then we're going to go ahead and monitor how much fuel is coming back. As you can see, we do not have excessive fuel coming through these, as we do have some fuel. There's always fuel to be returned, but you can see here's a number 10 right here, and it's pretty darn low, so it's not over 16. So we're gonna go ahead and diagnose as this is an injection pump failure, not fuel injectors. Now on a fuel injector, as we talk about two different ways to diagnose it here, there's also a multitude of ways an injector can fail. This one here on a return rate, its fuel's always going to be returning on the return side. If it has excessive fuel return, then it can't build that pressure. If it can't build pressure, then it go ahead and sets that low rail pressure code. On the truck that we looked at earlier, it had a balance rates and on times, which was creating a smoking concern. So a couple different ways that injectors can fail. This one here, injectors are good, pump's bad. The truck before was failed fuel injectors. So our next steps, again, moving forward on some repairs. All right, coolant's being drained. Batteries always get disconnected first. Nick's pulling off the intake. I'm gonna go ahead and remove these items to be able to gain access to this stuff. Charge air tubes are gonna come off. Pretty much get a lot of the stuff out of the way so we can get down to those valve covers and get those off so we can get these fuel injectors out. As you can see, Nick's to the point we're about to remove those valve covers and get down to those fuel injectors for replacement. We're gonna take a quick moment and talk a little bit about the LB7 high pressure lines. You can find these on our web store, DmaxStore.com, under our fuel system category. So what we're gonna talk about and show you is the amount of corrosion on the end of the sealing surface where it actually mounts down to the fuel injector. You'll see down inside here that corrosion. A lot of guys wanna go ahead and clean these guys up, but with the amount of corrosion we see on a majority of these things, we just want to go ahead and replace them, save the time, and move forward. So this guy sits down inside the valve cover. This is where it's going to go onto the fuel rail. This doesn't get much heat buildup with it, where this side does. So when you go ahead and take a look at our new injectors lines, the new injector lines, brand new, great sealing surfaces. Both ends are good. Don't need to worry about cleaning the other ones. Go ahead and put these on with the great fitment, and you can just throw these guys here in the garbage. A lot of people don't realize the importance of the cleaning procedure on these jobs. When you pull the valve cover off, there's a possibility you're going to get dirt and debris drop down inside there. So we want to make sure that we clean the valve covers up, clean up the return line, clean all the sealing surfaces, make sure we get all the silicone gasket maker off there, so when we put it back together, we know we don't have dirt and debris. We know that the sealing surfaces are good, as dirt can be the #1 killer for these engines, so we know and we're confident all will be well. We often get the questions if you should replace your injector cup when you're replacing your LB7 fuel injectors. A couple reasons why you'd want to replace these injector cups is if the cup feels like it's been disturbed where it goes into the head and the top of the cup sits higher up in the head than the rest of them. You can typically tell this by running your hands across the top of the cup and the head, and they should all have about the same difference of a small lip where it comes out across the top of the head. Now in this case, on this truck here, the number 2 injector cup came out when we pulled the injector. Anytime a cup comes out, we are always going to replace this cup when we're doing them in-house. Now some guys like to go ahead and replace the cups, which you can do. You just want to make sure that you clean all these surfaces here. So you're always going to replace the O-rings on it. You're going to add some Loctite to the bottom, whether you're going to be replacing it or reusing it. But you got to make sure that these surfaces are all good and clean because you don't want this dirt and debris to go back in. Now if it does go back in, then you can start having challenges with the surfaces of where it seals for the coolant. So you always want to make sure you put on new injector cup O-rings, which we include in our LB7 injector cup install kit. And you'll see that there's 2 O-rings per injector cup. There are a lot of options out there when it comes to LB7 fuel injectors for replacement. We're a Bosch certified diagnostic repair facility, so we are going to offer our 2 most common injectors here is going to be our Bosch Reman fuel injector and our Bosch brand new fuel injector. Both of these come with an industry leading warranty. Our Bosch remanufactured is going to have a 2-year unlimited mileage, and our Bosch brand new is going to come with a 3-year unlimited mileage warranty on it. Now the Bosch brand new does not require a core charge. So if you're out there looking at some other websites and you see a core charge on a brand new injector, you may want to second guess that one because Bosch does not require a core on brand new. They only require a core on the remanufactured. Now there's a third very popular injector we run on performance applications if you want to gain some performance without having a crazy fuel system, and that's going to be the S&S fuel system SAC type 45% over injector. Now we're going to go with the brand new injectors on this job here. So we're going to talk a little bit about the setup with them and the cups. Now each injector is going to come with a copper washer. It's going to come with 2 O-rings that's going to seal on the body and then seal up here on the return line. You got to make sure that when you're putting these guys back in that you have pulled the old copper washer out of the cup so you don't stack them. You're going to see this injector sits inside here. You're going to see a nice flush surface there for the spray pad onto the bottom of the injector. If you were to stack the copper washers inside there, that's going to push this system up here and it's going to disturb the spray pattern, which is going to lead to other issues when you get this guy back together, which you don't want. So Nick's got all our parts cleaned up. We got everything pulled for the job. We have our LB7 fuel injector install kit here. This is going to be everything you need that has to get this job done, except for some fluids and a fuel filter. We also got our high pressure fuel lines here that we talked about earlier. All this stuff you can find on DmaxStore.com under our fuel system. Let's go ahead and move forward and get this job done. Anytime we're under valve covers, especially on an LB7, we like to go ahead and adjust the valves. As engines start to get wear over time, clearances will increase. So by doing a valve adjustment, it's going to help quiet down this motor. On an LB7, we adjust the valves to 11 thousandths. Nick's all wrapped up on this job. He's going to go ahead and pressure wash it. We've already gone ahead and done a road test, rechecked for leaks, made sure everything looks good. All of our jobs when we do underhood work, we pressure wash them. We like to make sure the job's all nice and clean when the customer picks up. So he's going to go ahead and wrap this up, one more road test, and then it's going to be on to the next job. So next time you're thinking about parts or service, go ahead and check us out online at DmaxStore.com or give us a phone call at 877-4MY-DMAX. Thanks for choosing DmaxStore, and we'll see you next time.